Hello, welcome to the second part of Verbs 101, and today we are going to talk about progressive verbs. Let's get started. So progressive verbs happen when an action is still in progress. It's constructed when you take a subject, the verb to be, and the verb with an ing at the end. So remember, you have to conjugate a verb that's related to a subject. That just means change the verb to match the subject it's with. So that word be is going to be conjugated. For example, I am. The be changes to am because it's with the subject I, and then that verb, you add the ing to the end. And there you have a progressive verb. I am eating. We're talking about what I'm doing right now. Here's another example. You are always getting on my nerves. Now, I want to take a second to remind you, if any of this is new information, feel free to pause the video and to write it down. Remember, your learning is in your hands. Okay, so just like in simple verbs, progressive verbs can be used in each tense. And we're going to talk about the past, the present, and the future. Before we do that, let's talk about adding that ing to a verb. So when you add the ing, you usually just add it right to the end. So for example, learning, reading, and fastening. Except if it ends with an E, then you leave that E out and you just add that ing to the end. So make goes to making, time goes into timing, and conflate goes to conflating. Don't recognize the word conflate? Don't worry, because even if you don't recognize a word, these rules stand true. So what that means is that you are equipped to recognize verbs even when they are in a different form. So you see the word conflating, you might be aware that that is a progressive form of a verb, and then you know that conflate is a verb, and you might be able to take a better guess at what it means based on how it's used in the sentence. So, let's talk about a little spelling trick. Sometimes we double that last consonant in the verb when we add the ing. This is what I like to call the hopping versus hoping. There's a big difference between those two words, so let's take a closer look. When you have two P's or two consonants, it kind of softens a vowel. So when you have hopping, you've got a soft O and you've got two P's kind of cushioning that O so that it makes a soft sound. So this is really a question of pronunciation. When you add that ing, hop, H-O-P, you add an extra P to make sure that that sound remains soft O, just like in hop. Hop turns to hopping when you add an extra P. Now, this is different from hoping. With hoping, you're just taking that word hope, you're taking away the E and you're adding the ing so that you keep that O, that strong O, as it's pronounced in hope. So that's why in hopping there are two P's and in hoping there is one. And there are actually several verbs that work like this. Here is a list of some examples and a very easy rule to follow. If a one-syllable verb ends in a consonant letter preceded by one vowel letter, you take the final consonant and you double it. So, for example, beg. Beg is a one-syllable verb. It ends in a consonant letter and it's preceded by a vowel. So beg turns to begging. Flip turns to flipping, plan to planning, stop to stopping, thin to thinning, rub to rubbing, split to splitting, step to stepping, stir to stirring, swim to swimming, and wrap to wrapping. And that's not all. There are plenty more. So be aware of that pattern. If there's a one-syllable word and you are adding ing to it, just check to see if you need to double that last consonant. Now, you don't have to do that with all of them. There are some exceptions, and that's when they end with W, X, or Y. You'll notice that fix, when it turns to fixing, you don't have two X's. play, when it turns to playing, you don't have two Y's, and plow, when it turns to plowing, you don't have two W's. I like to think that those letters at the end of the alphabet, they're wild cards. They have all of their own rules going on. All right, so now we know how to add an ing and we know some spelling tricks. So let's go back to our different tenses and talk about progressive verbs. So in the present tense, if we want to turn a verb into present tense progressive, we first take that verb to be and we just change it to the present form of to be. So I am, you, we, they are, and he, she, or it is. And remember that he, she, or it, we can change those to names or the thing that we are talking about. So instead of he, we could say Robert. Instead of it, we could say the dog or the pen or the governor's wife's purse. I don't know. It could be anything, but that still remains the subject and it's third person singular, so the form of be turns to is. So let's go to our friend, the word hope. Remember we said that hope will take away the E and add an ing to make it go from hope to hoping. And now let's use that in some examples with different subjects. I am hoping, you are hoping, they are hoping, we are hoping, he is hoping. Or we could take that pronoun and we could put in a noun instead. My friend is hoping, or maybe your actuary is hoping that you'll do your taxes. So that's the present tense. Remember, if it's like climbing a mountain, the present tense is where we are. The past tense is like the bottom of the mountain, where we've been, and the future tense is like where we want to go. So the past tense, we're going to start talking about what happened, and with the past progressive, we're going to talk about what we were doing. So what was that moment like? What were we doing in that past moment? Let's take a look at how to do that. We're going to take the past tense of the verb to be, and we're going to just conjugate it with each of these different subjects. So instead of I am, it's going to be past tense, so I was, or he, she, or it was. It could also be you were, they were, or we were. So let's look at an example. We were already sitting at the bus stop when you were just packing up to leave. So we were sitting is past progressive. That's a place that you were in that moment. And notice that sitting, sit, is a one-syllable word with a vowel followed by a consonant. So we're going to double the T's. So sitting turns to S-I-T-T-I-N-G. Awesome. And then you were packing. That was pretty easy, right? So let's go back to the future. The future, you have the subject with the helping verb will, then with be, and then the verb ing. So I will be waiting, for example. I will be waiting for you. So dramatic. Here's another example. Shatrice will be cooking all day tomorrow to get ready. Another way you can form the future is with the construct going to. The subject, be, going, and then to verb. Now, when we have a verb with the word to in front of it, it's called the infinitive. This is the most basic form of the verb, so it doesn't need to be conjugated. It doesn't need to be changed. So you don't need to remember that's called the infinitive, but just notice that when you have that word to in front of a verb, the verb does not need to be changed at all to match the subject. It's in its infinitive, its most basic constant form. For example, the subject could be I am going to go now. So to go is the infinitive, and this is the construct. This is the future progressive. It is what I am going to do. It's another example. My cousin Roger is going to play in the NBA championships. Full disclosure, this is a complete lie. I don't have a cousin Roger, and he's not playing in the NBA championships. Now let's look at a more complicated sentence, and I want you to try to find where this construct is happening. It says, despite the large initial investment, economists predict that the Olympics are going to have a very positive effect on the economy. Do you see where we have the subject be going and the verb? That's right. The Olympics are the subject, are going to have is that verb set up. It's the future progressive with going to verb. Awesome. And now we're going to take a really quick look at negatives. So a note about negatives, we just throw the word not in between be and the verb. So for example, we were not hiding, or you are not kidding, are you? Notice that kidding is one of those one-syllable words where we have a vowel and then a consonant, so we double the consonant to go from kid to kidding. Now we can use contractions to make these a little bit shorter. We can kind of push these two words together, are not, was not, and were not, and you do this all the time without thinking about it. Aren't, wasn't, weren't, and also isn't. It's another example. So let's see how this works with these examples. Mom, we weren't hiding. Or, you aren't kidding, are you? That sounds even more natural, doesn't it? It sounds more like our regular speaking. I will note that you probably don't want to use contractions in formal academic writing. That's usually frowned upon. Well, let's take a look with the future. Where do you put the word not? You actually put it between the will and the word be. So I will not be going to the store today. And you can also use a contraction here because will not can be combined to won't. And this is going to look like, for example, no, honey, I won't be going to the store again until tomorrow. So that's progressive verbs. I know that's a ton of information, but I have full faith in you. Remember, you can rewind the video and pause to take notes, and you are going to be very successful.